Today I'm going to be making spring rolls, but as you know, you got to dip spring rolls in something, right? So I'm going to show you how to make the dipping sauce. Now some people call it peanut sauce, it's fish sauce, whatever. In Vietnamese it's called nuoc mắm, or Americanized nuoc mắm, or nuoc mam, I've heard it called. But anyway, you can use any brand of fish sauce you want. This is Squid brand fish sauce. Apparently it's one of the higher quality ones. But you start with fish sauce, vinegar, or actually if you're going to eat it fresh, lemon juice is probably the best. But if you're going to store it for long term or not going to be able to use it up in a short amount of time, use white vinegar. You can use rice wine vinegar if you like, but anyway, just some kind of vinegar and some water. But it's 1 part fish sauce, 1 part vinegar, 1 part water, and 1 part sugar. And there is a secret ingredient I'll show you at the end of this little segment here. So I'm going to start with the one part fish sauce, and I'm just using a cup. If you use a half cup, then it's a half cup of vinegar, half cup of water, half cup of sugar. You get the idea. I'm not going to fill it all the way up. So there's my 1 part of, see if I don't make a mess here. I've already got my 1 cup of sugar in there. So I got 1 cup of sugar in there. I put my 1 cup of fish sauce. I'm going to put my 1 cup of vinegar. And what I do is I actually put the water last, because the water is really just to taste. You can put one part water, but I like a little bit less water. So anyway, so that I'm just using an old, a cleaned out spaghetti sauce jar. Now don't worry, the sugar will dissolve. I just haven't stirred it up yet. So I'm going to put my water, and just enough to not to overfill it. So now the secret ingredient is garlic. I've got about 6 little cloves, 6 of these minced up. It's going to be a coarse mince. You don't have to really mince it just fine. Do it to your taste, but the more garlic the better in my opinion. And just put it in there, and then get you a spoon and stir. And that is the dipping sauce for your spring rolls, or anything else you want to. You can drizzle this on rice. Some people dip egg rolls in it. So it's just a dipping sauce. Now, some restaurants call it peanut sauce, so you can actually crush peanuts and put it in there, and that tastes good. My mom showed me how she put peanut butter in there, and that tastes perfectly fine. Or when you dish it out in a little bowl, you can put the peanut butter in when you dish it out in the bowl, so you don't commit to putting the peanut butter in here. So, alright, moving on. The next key ingredient is rice noodles. Now, they're in the store they're called rice stick, and they come in this plastic bag, and it's a bundle like this, and it's tied with some twine, so you got to untie it first. The instructions say to boil it for 3 minutes. I like to boil it for a little bit longer, maybe 5 minutes. Now what you do is, after 5 minutes, or however long you want to boil it, you want to run cold water in it to stop the cooking, because what's going to happen is it's going to get soggy on you if you don't stop the cooking. And I just want to make sure it's fully submerged. I've got about 2 quarts of water in this pot, and it's at a rolling boil before I put it in there, so I'm not going to make you watch the 3 minutes of boiling. So I'll come back after it's cooked and strained, and I'll show you what it looks like. It's been about 4 minutes, and I just tasted a noodle, and it's still kind of hard inside, so you might want to, and I did turn the heat down a little bit because it was starting to foam over. So give it another minute. Okay, it's been about 6 minutes actually, and you can see it's getting kind of soupy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, rinse it out, and strain it and rinse it with some fresh water. Otherwise, the soupiness is going to cause the noodles to stick together. Got the noodles strained, and this is what they look like. There's a little jiggle to them. You see there. You want them a little sticky, but not to where it's one big clump. I looked at the instructions, and it says to wet the noodles first, so I'm guessing, of course these are transcribed from Chinese, I'm sure, but it says to wet the noodles first and then boil them. But this is just the way I do it. It seems to be faster and works for me. I'm sure you can do a search on YouTube and find out how to cook rice noodles. But anyway, here's the shrimp. Getting ready to put the shrimp in. Now these are thawed to room temperature, and you don't want to overcook the shrimp because they'll get kind of mushy and they'll fall apart on you if you overcook them. So you just want them to really blanch. Really, you see how they're turning orange? So once they get kind of opaque, they're kind of translucent now, but once they turn opaque, and you want to get a good rolling boil before you put the shrimp in there. Otherwise, like I said, you can overcook them and they get mushy. And it doesn't take long. They're especially if they're thawed to room temperature or close to room temperature. Of course, with bacteria and stuff like that, you don't want to leave them at room temperature too long. I got them out of the freezer, and I think within 15-20 minutes of soaking in cold water, they fell apart. They didn't stick together, and I think they're probably ready to come out. About another minute or so. Okay, it took about 3 or 4 more minutes, but I can start to see kind of around the edges where the water's starting to boil up again. And you want to get a nice opaque color to the shrimp. Otherwise, you're going to have raw shrimp. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to strain them and peel them and start assembling our spring rolls. There's 2 ways you can wet the rice paper for the spring roll. And spring rolls come in different sizes. This is like a huge, like 12-inch size, 31 centimeters. I'm going to show you, and you would think this would be easier, but it's actually not. These small ones are actually a little easier. I got it wet, but I'll show you. Put it on here. There are certain thicknesses too. This one is a nice uniform thickness, so these are probably best for beginners. There's 2 ways you can wet them. Normally, the way I grew up, we did when I grew up, is you'd have a shallow plate full of water, and you would just kind of dip it and roll it around, making sure that there's water all over, and just shake it off. And then set it on your plate, and then once it sets on the plate, it'll start to soften. My mom kind of showed me another way, where take your rice paper and you get like a barbecue brush or something, dip it in the water, and then kind of paint the rice paper on both sides. Because if you get too much water, it's going to be really thin, really floppy, and break on you. And if you don't get it wet enough, I don't know, the texture is going to be kind of weird. You're going to like bite into a crunchy piece, and it kind of catches you off guard. But either way you do it is fine. Again, just be careful not to get it too wet. So as soon as they're wet, they're not going to get floppy right away, but just give it time. So as soon as they're wet, then you can start loading them up. Move the camera over. First thing I do is, you can load them up with a variety of things. First thing I do is I put some lettuce down, kind of as a palette, and then I put some of my rice noodles on there. The rice noodles are kind of sticky and springy. And then you can layer it with other things. I've got some green onions here. And the trick is not to load them up too much. When you think you don't have quite enough, that's perfect. You can stop. Don't overdo it, or else you're going to rip it. Just very little. And then what I did was I took the shrimp and I cut them in half so they'll lay better. And you can also cook some of these up and slice them kind of diagonally in thin sheets, and also put those in there. So those are really nice. All right, so here it is. Got to kind of be a little gentle with it, but what I do is I kind of roll it over the top, kind of pull it back on itself, and then roll the corners over to keep the ends from falling out. And you can see it is kind of springy, the spring roll. And then just kind of roll it and keep pushing back on itself. Not too much, or else you'll break the wrapper. And it takes a little bit of practice, and just kind of roll, roll, roll. And then there you have it. The spring roll. Now you can put all kinds of stuff in there. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the sauce. Here's the fish sauce mixture we made before. And what I like to do also is mix it with some hoisin sauce. Right there, hoisin sauce. And it also comes in, this came from like my Kroger. And you can also buy it in jars that look like this too. And there's also the industrial, like half size number 10 can that it comes in for like restaurant use. And also I'm going to put some sriracha hot chili in there too. So I'm going to get a spoon. Now, when you first mix the fish sauce, you want to let it kind of steep a little bit, let the garlic permeate through there, but you don't have to. It gets better as time goes by, but I just put a couple of spoonfuls in there, or 3. Put me a little pepper in there, or hot chilies. And then a little bit of hoisin sauce. Now some people mix the hoisin sauce in with their fish sauce. Whatever you want to do, and then of course you can put some ground peanuts in there. So that's what it looks like in there. Stir it up a little bit. And then enjoy. Just like Mom used to make.